The next day, much later. 15 minutes later. The next morning.
1 minute 37 seconds later.
A little longer than a few minutes later. 2 very boring minutes later.
12 seconds later. 3,000 years later.
2,000 years later.
1 pair of pants later.
Many unbearable hours later. End of flashback. Early the next morning.
A few inches later.
Several bad puns later.
Many months later.
75 years later. 6 months later.
3:28 a.m.
298 frozen patties later. 1 semester later. 1 extremely annoying shift later. A lot of boring math later. 16 paranoia-filled days later. Thousands of tears later. 1 winner later.
1 debt to society later.
Meanwhile,
2 hours later. 3 hours later. 6 hours later. 1 eternity later.
a few moments later.
6.5 hours later.
5 hours later.
2 minutes later.
1 minute later.
1 hour later.